Hello everyone and welcome back to another video from the Science Fiction Station video series where I read a chapter from this book every time, Il Noblet Elmer and the Alien Water Thieves by myself, Catherine Rose Newey, which you can get in ebook or paperback from Amazon. And there are also matching worksheets that go with every video. So if you haven't got your worksheets yet, you need to pause the video and go to my website, catherinerosenewey.com, get your parents or carers to sign up there for all the worksheets. And there's a big range of fun and educational worksheets at my website, including the Science Fiction Station worksheets. So the worksheets you need for this video today, which are for chapter 10 of the book, look like this. So I'm going to explain the activities on worksheet part A, which is the first page of the worksheets, which is the activity that you can do while I'm reading the chapter. So activity 1 says, while everyone is chanting the verses from Mrs. Appledorn to get rid of the shed pests, some people are wearing t-shirts with silly or clever words on them. Listen to the author reading this chapter, which I'll be doing in a minute, and write down the messages on the t-shirts here. Perhaps you can think of your own t-shirt message. There's loads of little t-shirts there for you to write the messages on. Okay, and then I'll explain worksheet part B, the second page of the worksheet with activity 2 and activity 3 after I've finished reading. Right, so let's get to it. Chapter 10. Mucharian Spaceships and a Pyramid. I knew somehow that the Mutilo-Kygography leader, who thought so much of himself, had vanished for good. I was pretty sure of it. Mrs. Appledorn's ancient poetry verses, which were like a spell, and my shrink blasting at the end, had been too strong for him. But even though he was gone, if the blubbery Mr. Rosie was to be believed, then there was still the problem of the Mutilo-Kygographers hiding in all the garden sheds of the world. And I couldn't forget that the Mucharians, spotted in South America, seemed to have beaten the Mutilo-Kygographers to it and were stealing Earth's water. I had to get there and stop them. But first, I had to somehow reach all of those Mutilo-Kygographers in all of those sheds and get rid of them too. I turned and walked back into the kitchen, where my mum looked up, surprised at me. "Il, we were so worried. Where did you get to? You know you're supposed to let us know if you're going out. I'm going to speak to your father about this. Consider yourself grounded, young man." This time she was cross. I blurted out, "Sorry, Mum. Okay, Mum," and went into the living room. My dad was there watching TV, as he always seemed to these days when not at work, and he called excitedly to the rest of my family. "Faith, Dylan, Shelley, come quickly. Mrs. Appledorn is on TV." They came rushing in and my dad turned the volume up. There was Mrs. Appledorn, about to be interviewed for the news. Probably in her own living room, because I recognised her sofa. It was lavender coloured. "What's going on?" asked my mum, confused as to why her neighbour was appearing on the news. My dad explained that the news announcer had just said there was a plague of purple-skinned rodent-like creatures, like large skinless rats, they said, living in people's sheds. And apparently Mrs. Appledorn had discovered a way to get rid of them. "Mrs. Appledorn, really?" my mum laughed questioningly, but then we all turned to watch the screen as the interview started. "So, Mrs. Appledorn," asked the TV presenter, "what exactly are these creatures and where do they come from?" We were all, including Shelley, glued to the screen. "Well," started Mrs. Appledorn in that wheezy voice we knew so well, "no one knows." Despite the blurriness of the TV screen, I thought I noticed a slight glimmer in her eyes. "But they're pests, and we must all get rid of them, or there'll be more." One of her cats jumped onto her lap, and the camera hurriedly swung back to the interviewer. Mrs. Appledorn, I understand that you found a way to combat them?" inquired the TV presenter, looking straight at the camera, blinking. "Yes," said Mrs. Appledorn in her raspy voice. "They don't like patterns and order. It's really important that we use special numbers and words against them. It's the only thing they respond to." The TV presenter looked directly at the camera at us, smiling and trying to look perfect. "Are there any specific patterns or words we should use?" she said. As Mrs. Appledorn said it, so did I. "Ode to a Code poem," we both said together. My family members looked at me, a bit surprised. "She told me before," I explained rather quickly, before they could ask any awkward questions. The news reporter went on to announce that people could find the Ode to a Code poem words on news websites, in newspapers, and from their local police stations. She explained how people everywhere had to read them out aloud to the pests in their sheds, who would then disappear. There was a helpline number for anyone who had any difficulty doing so. Shelley was worried and almost crying. "I'm scared," she said. "The TV lady said there's monsters in our shed." My mum hugged her and said, "It's nothing, don't worry, darling. But just to be sure, we'll get the poem and say it together if you like. Pete, could you check the website for it, please?" Mrs. Appledorn's interview on telly had helped me solve one of the pest problems. Over the next few days, people read aloud or shouted or sang the words of Ode to a Code into their garden sheds. Some even read it aloud to their garages, garden boxes, outbuildings, summer houses and rubbish bins, just to be sure. Someone said they'd heard that a farmer in Scotland had read it to all of his cars and tractors too. There were lots of news reports with photographs, as well as YouTube and Facebook posts showing whole families, groups of friends, people on their own, and sometimes policemen and firemen joining in with neighbours, reading it. Some videos even showed the Mutilo pests shrinking and disappearing with little pops or poofs whenever they heard the poem. Competitions started up. People were bragging about how quickly they learnt the words of Ode to a Code off by heart after having read it just a few times. One girl claimed she knew it word for word after seeing it only once. Or they boasted about the most times someone had read it and made shed pests disappear. 102 times is the current record by a man in Wales. Children started wearing shed pest costumes made of light purple, thin and stretchy fabric. They played games where one of them had to be the shed pest, while the others all chanted various versions of Ode to a Code. Then the shed pest child had to pretend to implode and vanish, usually while everyone fell about laughing or told them they were doing it wrong and how to do it more realistically. People went to the shops, gyms or pubs wearing T-shirts with messages across their chests like, "Shed pests are goners," or "I'm a shed pest, words can hurt me." And I noticed our neighbour outside yesterday with her prize cellular in his buggy wearing a top that said, "I'm smaller and louder than a shed pest." My dad was very proud of his choice of T-shirt, "Ode to a Shed Pest," which he said was unique. I didn't tell him, but I saw a teenager wearing the same one outside the supermarket. Pretty much everyone, including my friends, were busy for a few weeks happily getting rid of the Mutilo shed pests. Although he didn't know they were really aliens, David said, "This is way cool, better than Gravitonia." In that time, I didn't really see Mrs. Appledorn. She was too busy. After she was on telly, there always seemed to be TV trucks and newspaper reporters and other people at her house. Everyone now called her the Shed Pest Lady, which I suppose was better than Applethorn. Meanwhile, I was secretly worrying about the Mucharians and how to get to South America to save Earth's water. I knew something had to be done, but what? I couldn't really just telecommune Gapiton and ask for help. They didn't like that sort of thing, because they might get told off by Miyaka for poking their nose into another planet's business. But I decided I'd give it a try anyway, as I was getting desperate and couldn't think of anything else. So one day after school, about 2 weeks after Mrs. Appledorn was on telly, I went to the field and climbed into my tree again. As I was starting to focus on the telecommuting process, I heard a whizzing sound. It was like the wind whistling, but with a slight deep sound reverberating too, like a quiet engine. At first I thought it was the telecommuting vortex feeling, but realised it hadn't started yet. I looked around in surprise, wondering what else it could be. There in front of me, warp rotating out of the sky and settling on the grass, was an M-Sport, a sort of mini M-Sport, like the spaceship which had brought me to Earth, only smaller. The door opened, and a Gabbertonian Earthian popped her head out. It was Sasaskin. "Bonjour, Noblet," she beamed in friendship. "I have come to fetch you. We're going to sort out the Mucharians." I climbed on board. On the way, she explained that she had also found out about the Mucharians stealing water and had eventually telecommuned with Gabbiton, who had agreed to bring her the M-Sport to help. Luckily, she lived on a farm in France, so there had been a quiet, out-of-the-way place for them to land. But then the Gabbertonians had left again, as they couldn't be seen to be getting involved. We flew the M-Sport in invisibilized mode via China to fetch the other Gabbertonian Earthian, currently also on Earth, Madescalar. He was, like me, very surprised to see the M-Sport. Then we made our way to the jungles of South America and touched down carefully in a small clearing near the lake with the disappearing water. We put on our ethereal biosuits and climbed out into the jungle. As before, the intense heat, moisture, and jungle noises hit us like waves, and we had to stop and try to symbiotically osmotose our biogenes with the environment. As we reached the lakeside, we noticed that it had dry mud all along the sides, as if it was drying up. That must be from the Mucharians sucking out the water for themselves. As we looked up and down the lake's edge, trying to see any footprints or signs of them, I spotted a large building, half hidden in the trees, with creepers twisting over it. We rushed over. We pulled some of the trees and creepers aside and couldn't believe our eyes. A pyramid, about as tall as an Earthian building of a few floors high and made out of sand-coloured large stones, stood before us. As we gasped in amazement at the hidden structure, we heard some rustling sounds in the undergrowth. Next thing, 3 small animal-like creatures waddled out of the bushes and came straight up to us. As soon as I saw them, I knew they were Mucharians, and all 3 of us Gabbertonians went into fight mode with our biotech ready. But we soon realised they were trying to telepathize with us, and were fellow Gabbertonians, and were very glad to see us. We all went to sit in our M-Sport to hear their story. It turns out they were the Gabbertonian Mucharians who'd come via Earth when the GSFs had forgotten to deliver them to their spaceton of the universe. They had stepped out of the M-Sport when we had stopped in South America and had been accidentally left behind. Probably being so quiet and small, no one had noticed they were missing until the M-Sport was several spacetons away in the universe. They had discovered the pyramid and, being part Mucharians, had recognised it with their genetic memories. They showed us a Mucharian M-Sport hidden inside the pyramid through a latch door at the back of the pyramid, which must have been left on Earth by the Mucharians 1/10,000th iconic ago. They said they seemed to have lost their telecommuting ability over long distances. Perhaps it was something to do with Earth's electromagnetic field, so couldn't telecommune with Gabberton, although they tried many times. After they found the pyramid, they decided to siphon water from the lake with the M-Sport's hose to try and get the M-Sport working again, so they could escape from Earth. Of course, most universals know that water is needed for spaceton astromorphing. To cut a long story short, as some Earthian largers say, we telecommuned with Gapaton, and the Gapatonian Mucherians were collected. Sasaskin, Madescalar and I were taken back to our Earthian homes, actually to fields or forest nearby, and in invisibilized mode so that no Earthians saw us, and the Gapatonians took our M-Sport back to Gapaton with them. What a day, I thought as I walked back home after being dropped safely in the field nearby. I tiptoed back into my house, thinking no one had noticed, but then I heard my mum and dad whispering in the living room. My dad called out, "Il, can you come in here, please?" I thought I was really in trouble this time. As I walked in, they were both sitting on the sofa, looking nervous. Il, there's something we need to tell you," said my mum. She looked at my dad. "Yes, we've been meaning to tell you for a while, son. Just it was never the right time," said my dad. "Well, you see," began my mum. She looked like she wanted to cry. "Il, I'm just going to say it. Well, we adopted you when you were a baby," my dad blurted out. Then they both looked at me, very worried, waiting for my response. "It's okay," I said. "I know. I remember." "What?" They both looked confused. "But you were too young," my mum said. "Mum, Dad, I have something to tell you too. I do remember, and it's fine. I'm happy. Don't worry." Then I sat down and started telling them my story. "Mum and Dad, you think I'm just an ordinary boy. Actually, I'm not from this planet." The end. Well, I hope you've enjoyed all 10 chapters of Il Nublet Elmer and the Alien Water Thieves. And let's have a look at the worksheets now. So hopefully you managed to write in all the sayings and the words that you heard people had on their t-shirts about the shed pests. Well, now we're going to look at worksheet part B with activity 2 and activity 3. So activity 2 says, at the end of the chapter, Il Nublet starts telling his parents that he's not from this planet. What else do you think he might go on to say to them? What questions will they have? Now imagine you're also a Gapatonian Earthian, like Il Nublet, Sasaskin or Madescalar. Write a letter to your parents, carers or friends, telling them all about your secret, who you really are, where you come from, how you got here, why you're here, and so on. Plan what you'll say, then handwrite or type it in neat on a separate piece of paper. Okay, so I think that'll be quite interesting to see that. And activity 3, you're going to create your own t-shirt design, just like the Shed Pest t-shirts. You can create your own Shed Pest design or any other design you want. Use the outlines below of the front and back of a t-shirt. Now you can enlarge these, you can copy them, you can draw them much bigger on a big sheet of paper so that your design is nice and big and colourful. You might even be able to sell your t-shirts online. Okay, so first of all, you must have your parents and carers' permission to do that, and the design has to be your own design. And you can have a look at the website links there. So there's 2 websites there where you can upload your own designs for t-shirts, and they will print them and send them out. And those are Spreadshirt and T-Mill, but I'm sure there's others. Okay, so have fun with all of that. And if you would like to show me your t-shirt designs or your letters about being a Gapatonian Earthian, I would love to see them. So ask your parents and carers to either email a reply to any of the email newsletters they got from me when they signed up for the worksheets, or contact me via my website, catherinerosenewey.com. And as this is the last video in the whole series, because there were 10 chapters to the book, so there were 10 videos, I have a surprise for you because you have made it all the way to the end, so well done. There is a bonus worksheet for you sitting at a special website link, and you will have to type the exact website link, which I'll give you in a minute, into your browser address bar, because it is not a page you can find by just going to my website. It is a special secret one just for you. Okay, so the special website link that you need to type in exactly as I say it is catherinerosenewey.com/secret worksheet. Okay, so if you type that all in one, you will get to the secret download of a special worksheet just for you as a bonus. Okay, so I hope you enjoy it. I've really enjoyed reading the book to you and had a lot of fun. Hope you've had a lot of fun too. If you want to have a look at any of the other worksheets on my website, or perhaps at my books, because I've written more than just this book, I've written other books, and there's another Il Noble Elmer book coming out soon, please have a look at my website, catherinerosenewey.com. Okay, I'm going to sign off now, say goodbye, have fun, stay happy, stay healthy. Over and out. Bye.